matter what walk of life you come from, what industry you're interested in pursuing, or how much experience you've garnered, there's always a need to have critical thinking skills. In fact, such skills can truly make or break a person's career, as the consequences of one's inability to process and analyze information can be massive. With this said and done, let's dive in to explore why do we exactly need critical thinking and how do we acquire it. What is critical thinking? Critical thinking might be described as the ability to engage reflective and independent thinking. Unable to catch things right? Let me break this down for you. Critical thinking is deliberately analyzing information which can help you make better judgments and decisions. Critical thinking is thinking about things in a certain way so as to arrive at the best possible solution in the circumstances that the thinker is aware of. In more everyday language, it is the way of thinking about whatever is presently occupying your mind so as to come up with the best possible conclusions. It is the analysis of an issue, a situation, and the fact, data, or evidence related to it. Ideally, critical thinking can be done objectively, meaning without influence of personal feelings, opinions, or bias, and it focuses solely on factual information. In essence, critical thinking requires you to use the ability to reason. It is more about being an active learner rather than a passive recipient of information. Critical thinkers rigorously question ideas and assumptions rather than accepting them at face value. They also identify, analyze, and solve problems systematically rather than intuition and instinct. This is no easy task, which is why I aim to help break down the basic elements of critical thinking and offer suggestions on how you can hone your skills and become a better critical thinker. There is no universal standard for what skills are included in critical thinking process. I've boiled it down to the following 5. Focusing on these can put you in the path of becoming an exceptional critical thinker. Firstly, identifying. The first step of critical thinking process is to identify the situation or problem as well as the factors that may influence it. Once you have a clear picture of the situation and the people, groups, or factors that may be influenced, you can begin to deep dive into the issue and the potential solutions. When facing a new situation, question, or scenario, stop before proceeding and ask yourself the following. Who is doing what? What seems to be the reason for this happening? What are the end results and how can they change? Secondly, research. When comparing arguments about an issue, independent research ability is key. Arguments are meant to be persuasive. That means the facts and figures presented in their favor might be lacking in context or come from a questionable source. The best way to combat this is independent verification. Find the source of information and try to evaluate it. It can be helpful to develop an eye for the unsourced claims. Where did I get this information from? Is the source of information trustworthy? Are few questions that you can ask for yourself. If you ask or try to find it yourself that there is no clear answer, that should be considered a red flag. It is also important to know that not all sources are equally valid. Take time to learn the difference between popular and scholarly articles. Popular articles are written for general public. Language is simple and easy to understand, but the source of materials is not cited. These articles include glossy photographs, graphics, and visuals. The information is fact-checked. On the other hand, scholarly articles are written by scholars and researchers for academic, professional, and experts in that field. The articles are longer and the topics are narrower. Sources of these materials are cited. Charts and graphs are also used to illustrate the research findings. Many of them are peer-reviewed, meaning that panel of experts review articles submitted for publication to ensure that proper research methods were used and research findings are contributing something new to the field before selecting for publication. Thirdly, identifying bias. Bias is favoring one side of the conversation or situation without proper evidence. This skill can be exceedingly difficult as even the smartest among us can fail to recognize bias. It is equally important and arguably more difficult to learn how to set aside your personal biases that may cloud your judgment. A strong critical thinker do their best to evaluate information without any external influence. Fourthly, inference. The ability to infer and draw conclusions based on the information presented to you is another important skill for mastering critical thinking. Information doesn't always come with a summary that spells out what it means. You will often need to assess the information given and draw conclusions based upon raw data. The ability to infer allows you to extrapolate and discover potential outcomes. When assessing a scenario, it is equally important to note that not all inferences will be correct. For example, if you read that someone weighs 260 pounds, you might infer that they are overweight or unhealthy. Other data points like height and body composition, however, may alter this conclusion. An inference is an educated guess, and your ability to infer correctly can be polished by making conscious efforts to gather as much as information as possible before jumping to conclusions. When faced with a new scenario or situation to evaluate, first try skimming for clues like headings, images, and prominently featured statistics. And then make a point to ask yourself what you think is going on. Fifthly, determining relevance. One of the most challenging parts of thinking critically during a challenging scenario is figuring out what information is most important for your consideration. In many scenarios, you'll be presented with information that may seem important, but it may pan out of scope with minor data points to consider. The best way to get better at determining relevance is by establishing a clear direction in what you're trying to figure out. Try asking yourself if you're tasked to find a solution or should you be identifying the trend, and few more relevant questions. Even with clear objectives, however, it can still be difficult to determine what information is truly relevant. One strategy for combating this is to make a physical list of data points ranked in the order of relevance. When you parse it out this way, you're likely to end up with a list that includes a couple of obviously relevant pieces of information at the top of your list. These are the things that you can consciously practice to become a strong critical thinker. However, there are things that can be get done with simple decision making. We all carry with us a range of likes, dislikes, learning behaviors, and personal preferences developed throughout our lives. They are the hallmark of being human. The more clearly we are aware of ourselves, our strengths and our weakness, the more likely our critical thinking is productive. Thank you for watching this video.